Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. A federal appeals court has rejected the Obama administration's attempt to reinstate a 6-month ban on deepwater oil drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. The ban was imposed in May, but a U.S. district judge with extensive energy industry financial ties struck it down last month. On Thursday, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans refused to stay the lower court decision. The Interior Department's expected to revise the ban order to address issues raised by the courts. A U.S. district judge in Massachusetts has ruled the federal ban on same-sex marriage is unconstitutional because it interferes with the state's right to define marriage. The ruling came in the cases of 2 separate challenges to the so-called Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, of 1996. It applies only to Massachusetts but could have broader implications if upheld on appeal. In California, a former Bay Area police officer has escaped a full conviction for the 2009 killing of the unarmed African-American passenger Oscar Grant. On Thursday, the officer, Johannes Messerly, was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, but was acquitted on the more serious charges of second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter, both of which carry longer sentences. Videotape of the killing shows Messerly shooting Grant in the back while he lay face down on a subway platform. Members of Grant's family immediately denounced the verdict. Scores of people were arrested in Oakland last night after protests broke out. We'll have more on the Oscar Grant verdict after headlines. The Pentagon's new nominee to head the U.S. Central Command is expected to draw scrutiny for a controversial record that includes outlandish comments and alleged disregard for Iraqi civilian life. On Thursday, Marine General James Mattis was tapped to replace General David Petraeus, who took over as the top U.S. commander in Afghanistan following the ouster of General Stanley McChrystal last month. As head of Camp Pendleton's 1st Marine Division in Iraq, Mattis played a key role in the 2 U.S. assaults on Fallujah in 2004. The assaults killed hundreds, if not thousands, of Fallujah residents, displaced thousands more, and destroyed much of the city. Mattis later dismissed almost all the charges against 8 accused Marines involved in the November 2005 massacre of 24 unarmed Iraqi civilians in the town of Haditha. Of the 8 Marines originally charged in the case, only 1 still faces prosecution. In February of 2005, Mattis was reprimanded after he told a public event he enjoys fighting in places like Afghanistan because, quote, it's fun to shoot some people. He said, quote, you know, it's a hell of a hoot. I'll be right up front with you. I like brawling. In Pakistan, at least 50 people have been killed and over 100 wounded in a double suicide bombing in a northwest tribal region. 2 attackers detonated their explosives outside a government office. It was one of the deadliest attacks to hit Pakistan this year. The U.S. and Russia have completed what's been described as the largest prisoner swap between the 2 sides since the Cold War era. On Thursday, 10 alleged Russian spies were deported from the U.S. shortly after pleading guilty to charges of acting as unregistered foreign agents. In return, Russia freed 4 Russians who had been jailed on charges of spying for the West. The European Parliament's approved the resumption of a controversial data-sharing program that allows the U.S. to monitor millions of international financial transactions. The records have been obtained through SWIFT, which directs trillions of dollars in international bank transfers each day. The program has been accused of violating privacy rights since coming to light in 2006. European Union lawmakers had rejected a proposed extension of the program earlier this year, despite heavy Obama administration pressure. But on Thursday, the EU Parliament backed a new deal that negotiators say will allow oversight of U.S. investigators involved in the program. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has wrapped up a visit to the United States following his White House meeting with President Obama. On Thursday, Netanyahu told an audience at the Council on Foreign Relations here in New York that Israel, quote, has done enough to address Palestinian grievances and said the Palestinian Authority should drop their conditions for resumption of peace talks.
I decided, unlike any previous government, to freeze the construction of new settlements for a 10-month period to encourage the Palestinians to enter the peace talks. So far, 7 months have passed. They haven't come in. They should come in. They should have come in yesterday. They should have come in 12 months ago, 7 months ago, but we should not waste any time.
Israel has only partially frozen settlement construction, and Palestinians have insisted on a complete freeze before talks resume. Outside of Netanyahu's speech, protesters said the Israeli government should be held to account for war crimes in Gaza and ongoing settlement expansion on the West Bank. Another aid ship, meanwhile, could be making its way to Gaza as early as today. A Libyan state charity group says it's preparing a cargo vessel loaded with 2,000 tons of supplies to depart from Greece. The sailing would come just over a month after Israeli forces killed 9 people aboard the Free Gaza Movement's Freedom Flotilla in international waters. In Canada, the Supervisory Board of the Toronto Police Department has launched a probe into police conduct during last month's G20 summit. Over 1,000 people were arrested in the crackdown. Police have faced multiple allegations of misconduct, including beatings, unlawful jailings, improper sexual contact, and threats of rape. At least 16 people are said to remain in detention nearly 2 weeks after most of the arrests. One of the jailed protesters, Jaggi Singh, is a well-known Canadian social justice activist who was forced to surrender this week. Local officials in Toronto, meanwhile, have acknowledged the massive security fence built for the summit has cost double its initial estimate. The final bill for the 6-mile barrier that cut off large parts of downtown Toronto was $9.4 million. A recent study shows median wages for both high school and college graduates have fallen over the last decade. According to the Economic Policy Institute, the years 2000 to 2009 marked